Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's seminar where we're going to be chatting about the power of mindset and awareness in actually optimizing movement and training to match the goals that you've set for yourself. So welcome, Tarles. Tarles is going to be in on this seminar to share her wealth of knowledge and experience as well.
Yes.
And I'll just quickly preface that today's seminar is seminar number 3, and it is the third series in a collection of seminars we've been chatting about how do we actually get results. First of all, how do we get results that are sustainable, and how do we bring awareness and intention into the goals that we set for ourselves? So Sienna's just creeping out.
Really? Oh, yeah. Hi.
Oh, the joys of being a mum. Go to bed, honey.
So going to bed didn't work.
Well, normally she just goes there and she lays there and she falls asleep, but not today. Anyway, I will at any point grab her and put her back into bed, and she'll probably just pop on in. Anyway, quick recap.
Conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Quick recap over last week. So last week we were specifically focusing in on, the first week was specifically focusing in on body composition principles. So when we set ourselves a goal to lose weight or to build muscle mass, what do we actually need to do that would allow us to get to that result? And then last week we spoke a lot about, I guess, the strategies we'd use to be setting up our diet or our nutrition protocols to be thinking about how the food we're consuming is making us feel. How is it allowing us to hit our goals, to be able to regulate our appetite, our blood sugar levels. And then we shared a bunch of practical tips from a nutritional point of view. And then today we are going to be focusing on mindset and some training strategies that match your progress as well. So the reason why mindset is such an important part of this process is because if our mind isn't actually dialed in to be able to do those hard things, first of all, it's very hard to actually accomplish them. But second of all, like, things inevitably pop up that derail us, like this.
Yes. Oh, she's here. Hello.
Or stresses at work or sickness. And to get great results, the results that we're wanting to get from the gym, like, you need to be able to have your head in the game long enough to actually get results. So, and no one exists in a vacuum. Everyone has shit that happens on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that inevitably pop up and means that our training is sometimes less than perfect, our nutrition is less than perfect. And we see it all the time where women start something great, something really, like, they're like, I'm in this, I'm doing this for me. And then all of a sudden it kind of gets pushed down the priority list, and it gets pushed so far down that then they just basically stop and they go, okay, this wasn't the right time. This didn't work. I'm going to jump ships. I'm going to try a completely new thing because, like, I was demotivated and it just didn't work. What are your experiences in this front, Tarles, coaching our members or coaching just people in general?
Yeah, 100%. I'll notice, especially when I'm doing like scans with people, and that's when we get to have that really like in-depth chat about goals and like progress and everything that we want to do and accomplish. I'll hear a lot of the time people say like, oh, I do really well Monday to Friday, and then the weekend happens, and then that's when like I don't come into train, or I go over on my macros, or whatever the reason is. And then a lot of the time it is then, oh, I fell off the bandwagon, so may as well keep going, or may as well like keep going deeper and deeper off the bandwagon, rather than having that moment to be like, you know what, we're human and we mess up, or things come up, we get sick, whatever happens. And it's just about the next day, just get back on the horse, just treat it like any other day. Don't punish yourself by doing 2 hours of cardio or by starving yourself or anything like that. Just try and do everything you would normally do, and don't stress about what happened on the weekend or the day prior.
Yeah. And that on and off again switch is like something that it takes a little bit of time to work your way through, but just realize, like, to get great results, you do not need to be perfect. Like, people probably sit there and think like, you know, for us trainers, like we must not go out and drink. We must never have late nights. We must never sit there and like have binge episodes in front of the TV and have days where
It must be so boring.
yeah, accumulate, you know, a few thousand steps. But like, you know, you can still get great results by applying principles that you just do consistently.
Yes.
You don't have to be either training all the time or being a complete saint with your diet either.
No.
So today we're really hoping to help get you guys thinking about and bringing awareness to what mindset you operate out of, and then give you some tools and strategies to help flip that dial so that you are less likely to go, oh, well, like I'm
Throw it
already,
all away.
I'm already down this rabbit warren. I'm just going to keep digging. As opposed to just going, yeah, that's okay, less than perfect, but I'm going to move on from that and I'm going to learn from it. So this idea of fixed versus growth mindset, it pops up everywhere, but there's a great writer slash doctor that puts out a lot of information in this space, Carol Dweck. So if you want to get hold of any of her material, it's absolutely fabulous. But the whole preface behind it is that when we have a fixed mindset, it basically means that we are in a state where we are stuck and we are always perpetuating this same like thoughts and belief patterns around, oh, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, this has happened before and therefore I must be a failure. And there's very little room for growth, hence the name. Versus a growth mindset that it's all about understanding that we are all just always developing and becoming and growing, and no one gets to where they are, no one that's doing amazing things by just like being the most talented person in the room. They did it because they stopped, they had awareness of where they're currently at, they put in the hard work, they probably failed 1,000 times before that, they learned, and they made a decision to continue to grow. So this little graph I really liked, because it kind of like it, when all things are going great and we've, like I use The Biggest Loser as like a good analogy. Like if anyone's ever watched the show, like contestants have everything, like they're in like this bubble. It's like no family pressures because they're separated from their family. They've got people there cooking their meals. They've got trainers there like flogging them and being do this. So they've got no pressure. So that's why they get these pretty insane results, which aren't really long lasting, but I won't go down that rabbit warren. But none of us exist in this vacuum. No one. No matter how much support you do or don't have, things pop up, challenges, obstacles, things that require effort. So I really like this graph specifically because it kind of shows the dichotomy between what would be a fixed versus a growth mentality. So it is a little hard to read, and I need to like zoom in on it. So I'm hoping that
I already don't have my glasses on.
I'm hoping that's zooming in on your side. But here we go. So challenges, people with a fixed mindset generally avoid challenge. They generally go, oh, this like, nah, like that sounds too hard. Like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Versus a challenge that comes up that, you get that kind of like nervous energy feeling to be like, oh, wow, this is really like forcing me outside my comfort zone here. And you go, yeah, I'm going to do it because I'm going to trust that feeling. Because we don't generally grow without challenge. Like you probably find this all the time, Tarles, like with your wrestling, it's like you probably take on, occasionally take on jobs that you go, okay, wow, this is like much bigger than what I've done before. And you probably feel really nervous as hell, but you go, I know I can't get to where I want to go unless I say yes to this, right?
Correct. I'll be backstage sometimes at those shows and like my music's about to hit and I'm about to go out and I'm standing back there and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I a wrestler? Why do I put myself in this position? Like, I feel like I'm going to throw up. And then I go out there and I come back and I'm like, oh yeah, that's why. Like,
I did
like,
it. I can
I
do
did
this.
it. I feel so accomplished, and people tell me like, oh, you did really well. And even if I did something wrong, it's a really good learning experience of like, oh yeah, okay, I just needed to step this way instead of that way. And like, yeah, you feel awful sometimes and you question why you're doing things. And then you feel so accomplished when you have achieved them or you've overcome those challenges.
So putting that back into perspective of like, say, for example, you do have a body composition goal or a weight loss goal, like it can be very easy to avoid the challenge of actually training and being like, oh, it's going to be hard today.
Yes.
I'm just not up to it. And like, you know, I would probably say that I feel that 9 times out of 10 on a deadlift day. I'm like, I really can't be bothered lifting this weight, but I do it. And I'm like, oh, thank God I did it.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not going to
start
go.
off with like
What was that?
start off with the deadlift. That way it's done. You don't have to worry about
exactly. Done. And yeah, so embracing challenge. Obstacles, they give up easy versus they persist in the face of setbacks. So again, if you have a weekend where nothing goes according to plan, like for example, I had a week last week that, you know, I had Sienna at home for a little bit. I wasn't able to devote the time that I really wanted to my own personal training. But I was like, you know what? Like I did something. I definitely would say that I ticked a lot of the boxes. And I'm not going to give up on this 6-week challenge just because I had a less than perfect week. Even if you didn't show up at all, it's like, okay, stop, reset. I'm going to start again. Not start again, but I'm going to build on whatever it is.
It's a new day the next day.
A new day. Effort is you see effort as a fruitless or fruitless or worse, as opposed to seeing effort as the path to mastery. And you know, again, like, you know, sometimes coming into the gym, you might go, wow, like I'm really not getting some of these things. Like, you know, squats might not be coming, you know, naturally to you because you think it should. And you go, okay, well, instead, I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to listen to the coaches and I'm going to make sure that I'm squatting a couple of times a week and I'm going to make sure that it's good technique all the time. And you're going to be making sure that you're sitting in that place where you know it's going to be hard. Criticism is really talking about like that inner dialogue. And we all have that inner mean girl that wants to come out more than what it should. And if you've lived with her for a long time, you might think you could never get rid of her. You might go, well, she's just part of like who I am. But I can absolutely say you can flip that switch and you get to a point where you're like, oh my God, I used to be that person that was so like loathing that you couldn't even imagine being back in that place. But you don't get to that place without putting in the work.
Yeah.
Or acknowledging that she's there in the first place and doing things to help manage the conversation that you're having with her.
I always think it's like, because you can't just get rid of that voice. Like it's not like a switch of the thing. You got to work on it. So like that voice might be telling you, you know, like, oh, you can't hit your macros today. Like it's not going to happen. Don't worry about it. Whereas when she comes up, it's just about ending it differently. It can be like, oh, you haven't hit your macros yet. Not just you can't hit them, it's just it hasn't happened yet. Or maybe you just have to work a little bit harder today. So like when she comes up and she gives you that criticism, it's just wording it a little bit differently to make it like, oh, it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. And there's so much power in that one word yet, because it means that you are applying the growth mindset to be going, okay, I am actively thinking about what do I need to do to become that person.
Yes.
And one book I read, it was a while ago. I'll share it with you guys. And I'm just trying to remember. It's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it's mind-blowing because it's like all about thinking about the person that you want to become, and then breaking the habits that are keeping you stuck with where you are now. And it's really powerful stuff. I mean, it is a bit woo-woo. As you guys know, I'm not really a woo-woo person, but I definitely believe that you know, if you sit there and think about the person that you want to become and you go, okay, that person that I want to become is the sort of person that can have just some dessert, but know when to stop, that can be self-motivated enough to go to the gym X amount of times per week. That can be self-motivated enough to, do some mobility stuff. That can be self-motivated enough to hit her protein intakes. Like, if you think about that person, you automatically enact the habits that would take to be that person. Then all of a sudden you're becoming that person. And then all of a sudden you can't even imagine who that other person was that you used to be. It's all pretty powerful stuff. And then the success of others is a really important one, which I think, this is what makes 23W just such an awesome place, is that those that with a fixed mindset see other people as a threat if they're successful. So versus going, okay, there is so many amazing, fit, strong ladies in our community of various years of experience of training. I am going to draw inspiration from them. Every single time I train, I'm going to try and match myself up with the strongest person in the room, or I'm going to, gravitate myself towards the people that are there, like really high vibes, and really trying to, promote what we're about. And when you're drawn to that scenario, like that whole theory of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with, that really is true. And that's where lifting in a community and trying to stay fit in a community is such a powerful thing, because you are constantly surrounded by your own little micro ecosystem of badass bitches that are super strong, versus people that are always there looking for excuses as to why they're not doing things. So continue to draw on that for sure.
I had a really good example of that today, actually, in my burn class. We were doing Bosu push-ups with the plyo version. We add in a little clap.
Lovely. Yeah.
So great. And when I demoed them on my knees, because I know that I can't do them on my toes. And then when I did it on my knees. And so most people in the class were doing them on their knees. And then Kathy jumped in and she did the plyo push-up on her toes. And it looked amazing and looked phenomenal. And everyone just kind of stopped what they were doing and watched Kathy do these plyo push-ups on her toes. And we were all so fascinated. We were all like, I'm so motivated right now, Kathy. You just gave me all this inspiration I want to do that. I'm going to work on my plyo push-ups so I can look as cool as you look.
Yeah. That's
to show that's just the community I think that we have built.
Yeah, totally. And that's the awesome thing. As I said, training in a group, being around other people, you're constantly being able to absorb some of that. So allow it to wash over you. So what are some strategies that we can be implementing that would allow us to get there? So obviously there's quite a few things going on in this slide. So we'll just sort of talk to different points, but there are 1,000 things you could do to change your headspace out of being basically in a funk to being acknowledging that you've got endless potential. So the first thing is actually probably just being aware of your mindset. That's the first thing. And
some people probably don't even realize that they have a mindset. So it's just about sitting down, being okay, when I'm faced with an obstacle, what is my go-to intuition? What is the first thing that I think of? And you might be oh crap, I have a fixed mindset when it comes to that. So maybe I need to figure out how I can change that for myself.
And sometimes you might not be always in a fixed mindset. At work, you might be growth mindset, high performing and problem solving. But when it comes to things that challenge you on a personal level, possibly you might tend to go into another bucket. So just actually stopping and bringing your awareness to it for long enough to go, okay, I noticed I did this. I noticed I told myself that. And then the impact was this. So quite often this might be you get home late from work, you're hungry, you skip the gym because it just didn't quite happen. You finished late, you go to the cupboard, you grab a packet of chips and you go, I'm just going to have a couple because I'm really hungry. You eat the whole packet of chips and then you're sitting there going I always do this. Such a failure. I didn't even go to the gym today. And then that sets up another cascade of then going to the freezer and getting the ice cream. And instead of
as well.
actually making yourself that chicken stir fry, you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to order Uber Eats. I've had such a stressful day and I'm going to pour myself a glass of wine. And then before you know it, you don't get up the next day because, you know, you've had a rough night's sleep, you've had a few drinks the night before. Like, then your kids get up, like it's a whole like shit show of events, right? But just stopping yourself long enough to be like, I had a rough day. It was a big day. I missed the gym because XYZ. And then actually just being aware enough to be like, but I'm not going to let myself go down that path of destruction. I'm going to stop myself and I'm going to go back to maybe my love menu and be like, what could I do for myself right in this moment? That's like the kindest thing that would actually be there helping me feel good.
Yeah.
The next thing is actually just planning your time and getting organized, because quite often when we go into this fixed mindset spiral, it's because we're operating out of a place where we're really unconscious of actually the fact that we've made a decision.
Yes.
So like sometimes we unconsciously make decisions, which is like such a weird thing to think about, but we don't have the bandwidth as humans to be always operating out of a place of like, I'm conscious and present and I'm going to think about that and then make a decision. Like quite often we're just acting out of habits all the time. So this habit loop that's like on replay. So sitting there and actually planning your time and getting organized means that you can still throw a lot of those decisions over to the subconscious, but the decisions were made ahead of time before they can derail you. So things like cooking your food ahead of time, planning your meals, ordering a Woolies online, all those things. Like don't leave it to chance for things to be a hot mess. Plan ahead of time.
Yeah. And I always say when I'm doing like scans and that with people, this comes more to like nutrition, but can also come down to if you know that you're going away for a day and you're not going to have time to go to the gym. But I mostly talk about it in terms of nutrition. Like if you know that you have a girls' night on Friday and you know Friday night you're going to go out and you're going to probably eat like at the pub, you're probably going to have a drink or two. My tip for that is to always like write it down. Like you got that little menu magnet thing that we gave you, like write down your meals, but also write Friday night dinner with the girls. Like that way you've planned for it. You know that it's coming. It's not going to be like a shock on you when it comes to Friday night and you're at the pub and you've got a Palmer sitting in front of you. You're going to be like, no, actually, I planned for this. I knew it was happening. I'm going to allow myself to enjoy it because I've been looking forward to this all week. And then tomorrow we just get back to it and we're no stress about it, because it's almost like giving yourself permission to have fun and just don't stress. And the same as if you know you're going away and you can't come to the gym, at least then you were prepared for it. And it comes to Friday and you're like, I didn't get to go to the gym today, but I kind of knew that I wasn't going to get to go. So I'm making sure that I booked myself into an 8 a.m. class tomorrow so I can get that done.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. And that, you know, goes into point 3, writing stuff down and tracking your progress. So writing stuff down is more to do with like that planning ahead, getting thoughts down on paper, whether it's journaling. Sometimes just by writing things down, you're way more objective, versus like thoughts are more subjective and more like emotionally led. When you write things down, I think there's that little part of you that's like, oh, don't be too harsh. Like, hang on, be a bit more self-aware of what's actually like, what are the facts here? So I think writing things down, hence why one of your habits for this challenge is to journal on a daily basis. And then tracking your progress is just another way to be, I guess, when things maybe don't go according to plan, or like when you're searching for like, but what has changed, when you're tracking your progress over time, you can be like, oh, well, I can see progress being made in this bucket. And that's a big tick.
Yes.
Focusing on small habits, again, like I'm not going to talk too much about that because I feel like that's pretty much what we rant on about all the time. Developing the power of yet. And again, like I won't really elaborate on this because Tal's discussed it so perfectly before. But yeah, whenever you hear yourself saying, oh, I didn't do this or I can't do this, it's like, just put that word yet in there and it really flips the dial. Separate larger goals into smaller goals. And, you know, this is one of those ones with weight loss that Like a lot of people really lack the foresight to really map out a proper plan to lose weight. They think it's going to be easy, and it's not. It's simple, but it's not easy. And if you've got more than 5 kilos to lose, you need like an annual plan to do that. I mean, it sounds like super serious, but like you need to be able to think about it across like your year and going, okay, like these are going to be the times I'm going to drop the weight, and these are the times I'm going to maintain, and then these are the times that I'm going to drop that last little bit of weight. And then if you've got more than 5 kilos, again, like you need to be making sure you're blocking it out.
Yeah.
And I think doing it in that way, just again, it reminds you that there's a plan in place, that you stick to the plan, you execute on the plan, and you get results from the plan, rather than being like a bit wishy-washy to be like, oh, like we're all over the place. And it's all ends up being a bit ho-hum, and you just don't get your goals. You don't hit your goals. Hi, Asha. Bye, Asha. Okay. The next one is like review success of others. And again, like this is about thinking about, okay, who is at the place where I am, where I want to be?
How did they get there?
How did they get there? What kind of insights could they share? And like, you know, we love doing our 23W spotlights on girls that have done really, ladies, women that have done, members that have done really great in our challenges. So they're all very open in sharing what they've learned and what they've applied, but like, and they are the best advocates. So like your likes of like Denise has done some amazing spotlights. Amber, Catherine Garnham, just simply go to the website and type in spotlights into the blog search, and you'll find 1,000, not 1,000. It's probably a bit of an exaggeration. Quite a few, a lot. Quite a few spotlights that you'll be able to go, oh, like, okay.
Yeah.
That's not just what the coach said, that's also what these girls are saying.
And I think it's also good to see that and be, okay, they also may have had some setbacks, and they also might have had some challenges that they had to overcome. So it's not just you, because I know a lot of the time when people face obstacles, they're like, oh, this only happens to me. Like, I just don't have time. But you can see other people, like they struggled with very similar things. How did they overcome them? Maybe that's a way that you can start changing your fixed mindset to that growth mindset.
Yeah. And then we have our last one, which is probably not the last one, but it's the last one on our list, making mistakes and falling forward. So mistakes always happen. There's always going to be times where you sit there scrolling on your phone, as opposed to like you could have gone for a walk, or, you know, eating that burger as opposed to making something at home or planning ahead. There's always going to be those times. And in those moments, you need to go, well, like, yeah, is this just a small little bump in the road that's like really minuscule when I think about, you know, whether it's a 6-week challenge or whatever, and, you know, is this really a big deal? Could I just move on from it? And then how do I learn from it? How do I fall forward to go, okay, like, how did this happen? And does this happen all the time? If it happens all the time, that's probably going to derail your progress. So like, how can we better plan for that in the future?
Yeah, I love it. Sounds good.
All right. Cool. So some other things to think about, that if you're there going like, well, how do I bring enough awareness to what's actually happening? Well, just like take a moment, and are you actually attuned to the body signals like hunger, fatigue, stress? How do these affect you, and how do they actually feel? So, you know, I feel like it's taken a good portion of my 30s to recognize what hunger is for me. And it's not like stomach grumbling. It's like, it's a very different feeling. And I've now learned what that actually is. And, you know, I've learned to respect it. I've learned to recognize that I shouldn't be there looking at what other people look like, how they feel themselves, as like, oh, but like they're not eating all this food. Like I shouldn't eat all this food, but you know, like,
yeah.
what's wrong with me? I shouldn't be hungry. So I've recognized what that feels like for me. I've recognized what fatigue feels like for me when I'm at my tipping point of being like, if you add one more thing to your plate, you are going to be going downhill in a very fast way.
Not going to be fun for anybody.
What's that, Tal?
You won't be fun for anybody.
No, it won't be fun for anyone, and I'll be useless to everyone. And then, yeah, what does stress look like for me? And again, like, I want to say, like, what, 2017, 18, like, yeah, like I didn't think that I was a very stressful person, but then there was definitely things that I do, behavioral choices that I do in my week, my nights, my days, that would indicate I was very high stressed and probably just not coping with it very well. So it's about learning about like, what do those things actually feel like for you? And then how do they affect you? What choices do you make? What things do you start to sacrifice, whether it's sleep, whether it's overconsumption of calories, or like your calories are basically like this erratic mess. On some days, like it's a feast, and then other days it's like a famine, because you're always in this cycle of like trying to stay to your diet, but then being really stressed and then massively overeating, and then trying to go back to like this little like itty bitty small amount of calories that you're trying to feed yourself. Yeah, what does it actually feel like? What do you do? And then where are your pauses in your day? And I'm going to 100% say that I'm terrible at this, but I do recognize that if I can just get 15 minutes in my day where I can be like, this is a pause to stop, catch my breath, reset, stop working, not looking after the children, just pause. And so I've heard about these in terms of like, you can do things that are like full stops in your day, like meditation, yoga, breathing, and like it's kind of like a full stop. It's kind of like, okay, I'm doing this now, and then I'm going to move on to something else. Or you can have things called commas, which like commas are more like just a little bit of a pause. So that could be like taking yourself off to the shower by yourself. I know this probably sounds crazy for you, Charles, but like
Like, what
seriously.
else are you, who else are you showering with?
Yeah, you'd be surprised at who ends up in the shower with you, that's for sure. It could be like, you know, putting the earphones in and doing some cleaning by yourself. Like, I know that these all sounds like really boring things, but the mums will definitely
Oh,
understand.
really, it's fine.
They'll be on my wavelength, kind of being like, ah. Or it could be 1,000 things. Okay, it could just be making yourself a cup of tea, but just find a time in your day where you can have a bit of a pause, hit the reset, go for a walk, whatever it is that just helps to clear the brain and just reduce some of that mental load that you might be carrying around that you don't even know that you're carrying around.
Yeah. And I think those pauses can also come in handy for listening to your body signals, because before you had the pause, you might have been like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. Like, I need to eat everything. You have a quick little 5-10 minute pause, actually listen to your body. And then you'd be like, oh, hang on. No, I wasn't hungry. I'm just stressed. And so then you've saved yourself all this extra stress by having food that you didn't necessarily need, because you didn't quite understand that your body was trying to tell you one thing. You thought it was just this other thing instead. So those pauses, especially when you feel hungry, fatigued, or stressed, can help regulate everything. And be like, actually, no, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I got asked the other day by someone, they're like, do you ever just like binge or pig out on food?
Yeah.
And they're like, I can't imagine that you do. And I was like, no, I don't, but I definitely have been that person. But I think what is the biggest change in that whole circle is I recognize the reasons why I want to do that. And it's either that I'm hungry, I'm tired, or I'm stressed.
Always one of the three.
So it's like, you know, or it's that I really hate the food that I'm eating, which I just make sure I don't do that. I only eat foods that I like. So, you know, but it's about bringing your attention and awareness to it for long enough to be like, oh, okay, that's what's going on here. There are obviously things you can do that are like, you know, proper mindfulness exercises, and 100% you should be doing them if time permits, and if you can, yeah, just make sure you structure them in your day, whether that's, yeah, exercise, whether that's journaling, meditation, eating mindfully, like without any tech around you. Even just exercise is its own form of mindfulness. So like quite often, again, like when no one's in the studio, I'll be in there like with no music on at all. It's really quite boring to anyone else except for me, because I'm there like just like focusing in on just myself for a moment. Whether that's breathing and just that mind muscle connection. Like quite often, like for certain exercises in the gym, like just actually thinking about the muscles you should be working is a really good way to be like bringing yourself back into your own body.
Yeah.
Cool. And then on to this last slide, we are talking about optimizing movements and training strategies. So principles for designing training programs that align with individual goals, whether it's weight loss, muscle gain, endurance, or overall health. I guess like these slides kind of don't really fit within the mindset realm of what we were talking about. So like just have like this massive change of like thought patterns around this. But, you know, a question that we get asked all the time is like, how often should I be doing X, Y, Z? Like how often should I be lifting? How often should I be doing other things like running or HIIT style training? How often should I be doing like, you know, Pilates? Is it good for me? Should I be doing it? Yes or no? I guess like prefacing the answer to those questions of how do you find the right program that aligns with your individual goals is very much based off your individual scenario. So if you are just getting into regular exercise as a thing that you do, I'd be saying aim to do something, anything.
Anything, move
Yeah,
a
2 to 3 times per week and make it a regular thing that you do. If you are then going to that next step, the next step in my mind would be adding in some form of weight training, because that's where you're going to be able to get the most amount of progression, whether you're a beginner or an absolute advanced lifter. It's the one thing that I would say you need to keep up basically right up until the day you die.
Yeah.
Super morbid. So aiming to do that at least twice per week. And if you're nailing that, then it's 3 times. And if you're nailing that and you've got time, you could do 4. However, I'd say minimum 3 times a week, minimum 3 times.
Yeah.
Then you go back to your cardio. It is highly beneficial for you to be moving your body in different ways, not just lifting weights. So, and again, this is very much dependent on how active you are. If you're fairly sedentary, I'd be then trying to get your steps up and trying to accumulate, at least trying to get, you know, 7,000 to 10,000 steps per day. And just try to hit like a consistent amount of activity in your day. If you're doing that and doing it fairly consistently, then adding in some form of HIIT session per week is a really good way to be cross-training the body, to be staying powerful, to be also stimulating your metabolism, to be operating and being able to use the fuel that you're feeding it really well. And especially if weight loss is a goal, like I would say HIIT training, if you're already training 3 to 4 times a week, HIIT training is probably going to be the one thing you could add that would help like increase certainly energy output, but also help that afterburn effect that you get from training. And then you have your other styles of training, which are super, super beneficial. Your yogas, your Pilates. And this is where it comes back to like, how much time do you have in your week and what feels good? You might go, okay, I want to lift 2 times a week. I want to do HIIT once and I want to do Pilates once. So you're training 4 times a week. And that's a great program. You got to remember that to be realistic, that the progress that you might make in your weights might not be as great if you're doing 3 times a week, but then your body might respond better from a mobility and stability perspective. So you've just got to sit there and just bring awareness to how your body's feeling and going, what does my body need?
Yeah.
What do you think, Tarles?
100%. Like I've recently started trying to do more mobility and like Pilates in my training, because Wednesday night I do wrestling training, and then I know Thursday I'm going to feel absolutely knackered because I've just done wrestling training for 2.5 hours. Like I know Thursday is almost like a write-off for me when it comes to strength training. And then I'm like, I know that I can do something else though. I don't need to just sit at home. So that's why I'm like, okay, maybe my Thursday is a really good active recovery day. So that's when I can do the mobility stuff and the stretching stuff and more lower impact things. And then that's obviously going to affect how I squat. And I'm going to be able to maybe get a deeper squat now that I'm doing more mobility stuff. And that's all going to be like a little domino effect. That was all just from trial and error of realizing after a Wednesday, I feel knackered. I still tried to go to the gym, but my gym workouts weren't good. So then I was like, okay, maybe I don't go to the gym. And then I would feel like I didn't do anything that day. So I'm like, okay, so it's trial and error. Like the first routine that you come up with might not be the best routine. It might not work. And then it's just sitting down and being like, okay, that didn't work. Why don't I try this next week?
Yeah. And I would 100% agree. Like, as much as I would love to be able to train, weight train 5 days a week, the 5th session is just always average. And so I would be better off doing something else as my 5th session. And that's something else. It could be rotating, it could be Pilates, it could be boxing some weeks. It just depends on what I'm jamming, what I'm feeling. And it doesn't have to be a huge full session either. But I know that when I'm training 4 days a week, lifting weights, my sessions are 1,000 times better, and my body just needs that much recovery. Otherwise I feel like I don't have enough time between sessions.
100%.
So find what works for you. And as you get fitter and stronger, you might like start off with thinking, oh, like 2, and then you go to 4, and then you go to 5, but then you get stronger. So then you go back to 4, and then you add in other things. So just think like it doesn't have to be fixed. You don't have to be like,
stay like that.
Yeah. You've got the power to change it around. And then there's the importance of variety in your training. So again, like strength training, cardio, flexibility, just how do you balance them out? What do you actually enjoy? What do you want? What would keep you on doing it consistently enough to get results? And then adapting your plans based on progress, challenges or setbacks that come, and maybe your goals that change. So, for example, at the moment, I'm doing the challenge with you guys. I'm strength training 4 times a week. I'm going to aim to get 2 HIIT sessions in. They're going to be 20 minutes max, and then some like mobility work in and around that. But like picking up those 2 extra HIIT sessions, the idea is they're going to help. I don't normally do them. So it's like the thing that I'm changing to help put me into more of a energy deficit that would help me drop the body fat that I'm looking to drop.
And are you doing those the same day as your strength training?
Well, I didn't actually I wasn't able to do them last week. So that's a really good question. And the way that I've got it structured out this week, because I've fallen forward.
It'll be different this week.
It's going to be different this week, is that the idea is I'm going to do my HIIT sessions, my strength sessions in the morning. And then on one of my rest days, like the days that I'm not in the gym, I'll do a HIIT session, a sprint session. And then on one of the other days, I'm going to do a HIIT session in the PM before I pick up the kids.
Cool.
That's the plan. And then one day is a full rest day. So that's the plan.
I love it. And something might come up for you next week, and then you need to move it around.
And I might need to move that around. So we'll see. But like, you've just got to always be there going, okay, like, how do I make this work? And like, if say, for example, I get to the end of week 2 and I still haven't been able to do it, then that way I've got to go, okay, like, am I trying the wrong thing here? Like, what have I missed? Like
maybe one seems more achievable.
Maybe one. Yeah. Maybe I should just try and get one done, and rather than being like, okay, I'm fixed on 2 and it must be 2. Cool bananas. All right. I don't know if anyone's joining us live or here live. If you have any questions, feel free to turn on your mics and let us know. But otherwise, anything to finish up with, Tarles, from your end?
No, not really. I think we kind of nailed it in that. I think
we did nail it.
We nailed it. Go high five through the I feel like we kind of summarized everything we need to summarize. But yeah, I think it's definitely things that people aren't even aware of what mindset they have, probably. So I hope that after this, people at least just give themselves that quick comma in the day, just to be like, sit down, be like, okay, what do I think? If I was faced with an obstacle, what is my immediate, like, what is my instinctive reaction to that? And you might realize you have a fixed mindset and be like, all right, cool. How do I work on that? Or you might be like, oh yeah, I have a growth mindset. Like, I would just overcome it, be like, fabulous. Like,
yeah.
I think some people just don't know what they have. So take that time to give it a good think.
Yeah, and that can be applied to everything, whether it is your health and fitness, or whether it's work or anything, all things, children, partners, relationships, etc. It all is very powerful stuff. So thank you so much for listening in, team. If you've got any questions from this, make sure you let the coaches know. And we will catch you around.
Yay! Thanks, guys.
Awesome. I'll hit stop record.